Welcome to the EndurHunt podcast. Join me as I share my experiences as an emerging hunter, offer advice and overcome challenges, and pursue your passion for hunting. This is the final podcast episode of 2024. It is hard to believe that 2024 has already come and gone. This podcast comes out New Year's Eve. So if you're listening to this the day it came out, Happy New Year. Or if you're listening to it that week, I suppose, Happy New Year. This podcast is going to be a little different than most of my podcasts. There's going to be a mix of personal reflection, some hunting stuff as well. And really just looking back at this year, this year has been it's been a wild ride. If I can describe it in one way, I guess that would be it. This year has thrown many things at me. It's been a wild ride in ways that I couldn't predict. And I guess the best place to start is the beginning, the end of 2023, right around this time last year. My wife and I had made the decision that we were going to move. We had been in Texas for 4 years. Love Texas, all the amazing people that we met, the experiences that we had, the improvements for both my wife's and my careers. Texas opened doors for us that we didn't know were available at the time. And I look back very fondly on Texas. I love Texas. I love to go back to Texas, but it wasn't a place where we wanted to stay permanently. We missed having 4 seasons. We wanted to be closer to family and our friends from back in New Jersey. And ultimately, we decided we wanted to move now. At the end of the year, we hadn't exactly figured it out yet, but around this time, the end of December, going into January, we were very confident that it was going to be Tennessee. At that point, I had actually made a trip out to Tennessee to look at a house. It's not the one that we ended up getting, but I did look at a house at that point, and we were even talking to my wife's parents about moving as well because they wanted to relocate also. After searching for homes, and I should say my wife and I were very lucky. We following COVID, both of our jobs went completely remote. I think I got 2 promotions in those 4 years at my job. My wife completely started a new career, and we have both been given the opportunity to work remotely. And our bosses don't live where we live, so they don't really care where we are as long as we do good work. So we had the opportunity to move wherever we wanted, and that's a blessing and a curse, as it were. We moved to Texas originally for my job. There was a large restructuring at my old company, and it required us to move to, well, it didn't actually require us to move. I had the option to and was working remote before COVID started, but this was pre-remote work. It wasn't as common as it is, and I was worried about career advancement. So we decided to just move from New Jersey to Texas. We also wanted to get out of New Jersey anyway, so it worked out for us. But after the searching and the opportunity presented itself, Middle Tennessee is where we ended up. We are just south of Nashville and love this area where we're at. We're in a mature, older neighborhood. There's not a lot going on here, but we're not too far from the city if we want to go to the city, and we have enough quiet and privacy to just be left alone, which for us works out pretty good. Our house is older, but there's so many things. I think this might actually, I see a lot of potential. This could be our forever home. I have a vision of things that I want to do, and so does my wife. And it needs a lot of work. That was honestly the biggest part of this year for us, is just the move, doing everything with the house that took up so much. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's jump back in and talk about how the year actually started. So going back to January of this year, New Year's happened, everything. And my wife hadn't taken a deer all last deer season. So my friend Carrie from the Salty Yak Outdoors podcast, if you're not listening to him, you should definitely go check him out. He invited us out to his farm to go hunt and try and get my wife on a deer. I'm actually going to be hunting with him again here in a couple of weeks. We're going to be finishing out the Texas muzzleloader season, the late season, and hopefully I'll be able to get my first deer with the muzzleloader at his place. But back in January, he invited us out there with the goal of getting my wife on a deer and getting me on a pig. I had never gotten a pig before, and my wife hadn't been able to get a deer all season, so he had some free time and invited us out there. We didn't see any deer, unfortunately, over the 2 sits that we were out there, but we did see pigs. My wife got a real nice sow, and I took my 300 blackout and just shot into the herd. It's not a herd, the sonder. I believe it's called a sonder. But I just started spraying after she took her first shot. She took it on that sow, and I just tried to get anything that was in sight so that they could hopefully die when they ran off. At the same time, literally that same night, one of my best friends, Andrew Colson, got his first deer ever. He shot a spike with his muzzleloader in the late New Jersey deer season, And it was just, I was so excited for him when he got that deer. I just remember thinking it happened finally. He's worked really hard. He went out and sucked it up by himself, which is not an easy thing to do, especially in bad weather. Like they had snow when he shot his buck. It's no joke. It's tough to be out there in crappy weather, but he went it, got it done, and that fed his family throughout most of the year. They just ran out of that deer in the last month or so. He's out there again right now this season. He actually hunted this morning, was trying to get after it. He's been struggling just like I have with getting on deer this year, but we'll get to that. We'll get to my deer season as we go through the rest of the year. But in the same trip, so we're at Carrie's farm. We're there for a couple of days. We're hanging out and hunting, shooting our bows. Andrew got his buck. And this was when I switched over to the Trophy Ridge Precise thumb button. Now, I was done with my bow season, so this was purely for fun, purely for practice. And this was my first day shooting it. Now, if you didn't listen to the podcast, I'll put the link in the show notes and I'll make sure I put it up in the cards if you're watching this on YouTube. But I did a whole podcast talking about this thumb button release, and I love this thing. The first day shooting it, I got a Robin Hood at 30 yards. I'm pretty sure it's 30 yards. And I have been shooting it. Don't plan on stopping shooting it. I even bought one for my wife to get out for Christmas because she wanted to get a new release. So, really excited about that thing. No regrets on it. And I used it all deer season. The last thing that happened in January for me was I got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't talk about that very much. It's not really hunting specific. After I got out of the military, I wanted to get back into martial arts and I put it off for a long time. My wife got me a voucher to do Taekwondo. So I got like a month of beginner classes and I did those and I wanted to try jujitsu. The people make the experience. And the guy who I rolled with the very first day was a Navy veteran, and there were a couple of police officers and other vets there. And I just connected with them in a way that I didn't at the Taekwondo gym. So I was there for about a year and a half before we moved. And on one of my last times at the gym, I got presented with my blue belt and it was completely unexpected. I didn't have a clue that I was getting it. It was awesome. I'm really thankful to Manny, Kevin, everyone over at 10th Planet Georgetown. Y'all are great people. I have not rolled since I moved. Sorry. It's not because I got the blue belt. I've just been focusing on other stuff. But we're going to get to that because now we're going to move into February 24, which is when we moved. We officially moved just before Valentine's Day. It actually kind of ruined my Valentine's Day plans. We had to go to New Jersey for a wedding, and I got us reservations at the restaurant side of the venue where my wife and I got married, and I had to cancel them because we moved into our house and we weren't going to be there on time. Ended up being worth it because this house has been amazing. It's needed a lot of work, a lot of maintenance. Many things were not done well, but love this house. So happy that we got this house and moved in. It's Tennessee's treated us very well the 10 months that we've been here. And man, that's the story of most of 2024. I mean, from February on till let's say middle of July or so, every weekend, most days after work, my wife and I are working on the house. I mean, we've gutted a lot, and this year even is going to have, or this upcoming year is going to have a lot of that. After I get back from hunting in Texas, my wife and I are going to be doing full bathroom renovations, ripping everything out of this house, and we're doing everything ourselves, rerouting the plumbing, all of it. Um, it's time consuming, but construction is very expensive right now. And I came from a blue collar construction household. I can do everything myself for the most part. And I have friends and family that can help me for the things that I don't know very well. So I'm very lucky to have them around. They've helped us with other stuff in this house, and they're going to be helping us next year. So very lucky to have them. But that is honestly most of 2024. I've spent half the year just working on this house. And then by the time July came around, we sort of reached the milestones that we wanted to with the house, and we were burnt out. I mean, both of us were just physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. And we needed a break. So we reached a sort of stopping point. We got our kitchen where we wanted it to. The living room's completely done. We redid the hallways, did a bunch of paint and stuff in the house, did some things outside. And, we were like, okay, this is at least livable enough for where we want to be right now. We'll stop, we'll take a break, maybe do some things here or there. And, oh yeah, we completely redid our bedroom too, the master bedroom. I'm losing my track of my thoughts and my little outline here as I go. Sorry about that. There's a lot that happened this year, and I wanted to make sure I wrote everything down so that I didn't forget. I've been doing so much reflection lately between Thanksgiving and now, and just so much that I'm grateful for. And there's so many things that happened this year that, and like not all of it was good. Like July was the beginning of a tough part of the year for me. We reached that milestone in our house, but my grandma passed away, and there's not a lot of people in the world with my name. I say it every time, Angela Lukosevic, Angela Lukosevic. There's 5 people in the world with this last name, and my wife and I are 2 of them. My mom, my brother, and then I have an uncle on my dad's side who I don't really have a relationship with. But that's it. My dad passed away. I lost both of my grandfathers during COVID, not to COVID, just during COVID. And my grandma, my paternal grandma, passed away, and she was the last one. And I grew up in their house, and that was a very difficult time for me. It still is difficult. I've tried to form a relationship with the people on her side of the family that I don't know. I've never had a relationship with them, but um, I got hit with the mortality stuff a lot in the Marines. I've lost several of my friends, and I think life, even outside of the military. I mean, my mom. We're not going to get into this. It's too personal. It's too traumatic, as the therapist used to tell me. I don't see a therapist anymore, but I did. If you've gone through stuff, I don't have any affiliations with any therapy groups, but I got to see a VA therapist for free for, I think, a year. It made a big difference. It helped a lot with some things, but I'm not trying to make this be a dark podcast. I did have dark moments. It was there were difficult parts of this year, but I look back fondly over the year. I did spend time with family and friends when we went back up for the services. I took actual vacation because as it stands, even today, my wife and I haven't taken a real vacation this year. We did not go on any trips anywhere where we weren't working. The closest thing we got to a vacation is really right now the holidays. We took off for Christmas and New Year's, and I took off some time when we went up to New Jersey, and made it purposeful to just try to unwind, relax, see friends. I don't really have family in New Jersey anymore. So the little family that I do have on my mom's side, we saw them and we tried to make the most of it. We went to the Jersey Shore, which I don't think we've done in 5 years. And, I went swimming. I don't know the last time I swam at the Jersey Shore. It's at least 5 years, maybe 6 or 7. And it was nice. I really did enjoy going back and vacationing there. There's still not a single part of me that wants to move back or live in the state, but we did some hiking and tried to, because we were back in the fall, I think. Definitely we were there again around the time when the leaves were changing colors, and we made sure we got some hikes in. And it was emotional, and I think it always will be when I go back. I think one of the other things that hit me really hard was the realization that no one is going to go see my dad anymore. My brother and one of my uncles and I were the only people that would go and see him. And my brother doesn't live in New Jersey anymore. I obviously don't live in New Jersey anymore. So I know that nobody is really going to see him anymore. And that hits you in a weird way that I don't know how to describe. But all right, you know what? Let's move on. We're gonna move on and change gears and try and get back on the positive. I didn't intend on this podcast going this way by any stretch of the imagination. But we got back, right? So we're back home in Tennessee, and we took this break from the house, and we wanted to experience Tennessee for what it has to offer: hiking, kayaking, fishing. We wanted to go and explore the outdoors of Tennessee. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we moved here. All of the hikes, the waterfalls, the nature that you can experience here, trees compared to Texas. I mean, it's just everywhere. And Tennessee is just absolutely gorgeous. I love being here. It's a wonderful state to just explore and get outside. And really, my wife and I are either building something or we're exploring outside. Those are basically the only two things we like to do. Hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, anything like that, or crafty stuff or home renovations, building things. That's it. If you want to talk to me about sports and stuff, I'm sorry, I'm not that guy. It's just that part of my brain doesn't work, I guess. I don't know. But it's this time where, I started being like, yeah, sure. Hunting season's in a month and a half. I should probably start getting ready. And I definitely did not prepare. I did not give myself enough time to prepare. But we started shooting our bows. My wife and I both started shooting our bows. We're starting to get dialed in, make sure everything was good. I started e-scouting. And then the last couple of weeks before the season started is when I actually started putting boots on the ground. One of the big things that happened this year, and another thing that I did a couple of podcasts on now, is my muzzleloader. I've been saying for years that I'm going to get a muzzleloader, and I finally did it. I finally got a muzzleloader. I got the CVA Accura MRX. I did several podcasts on it. I did enough that I made a playlist for it. I'm not sure if I can leave a card for a playlist, but if I can, I'll put a card up there in YouTube for those, and I will put a link for the podcast down in the show notes. I think my second most popular episode right now is why I bought my muzzleloader and the background into all of that. So if you're interested in why I picked the CVA Accura MRX, definitely check that one out. And the other thing I bought leading up to the season was the XOP Full Rut. I've been interested in saddle hunting for a while. This is another one that I'll leave a card for and make sure I put it in the description. This is my most popular episode by far. It's like 4,500 views, and my next closest one is the muzzleloader one, and I want to say that one just broke 3,000. And my next closest one behind that is like 600, I think. So orders of magnitude more popular than the rest of my content, but I'll put links and cards for that as well. The XOP Full Rut has been phenomenal. I love that thing. I wish I switched to a saddle sooner. I'm not sure if there was an equivalent system available that was easy to use, but man, I really love the XOP Full Rut. Highly recommend it if you are looking for a budget conscious way of getting started. My video, I break down the things that I changed and modified, as well as the stuff that I bought to supplement the full rut, because I don't think that, I think 95% of the full rut is good to go. It's the last little bit that there are some just changes that I made, things that I bought and modifications I did that I think make it much, much easier to use when you're getting up and down, just making life simple. But those are the two big purchases that I made going into the season, and I had an awesome time with the XOP Full Rut. I did a decent amount of ground hunting too once the season started up. But before we jump into that, let's talk about the scouting that I did. I already mentioned it, but I didn't give myself a ton of time to prepare. And I basically just started throwing darts at the map. Like, all right, where can I drive to? What's within 35 minutes or 40 minutes? And let's just go put some boots on the ground, go check out some targeted spots. There was one area that I was really, really excited about when I was doing my e-scouting. It required an extra permit, wasn't on the TWRA website. So I thought it might be overlooked. Pretty sure that's right. And unfortunately, the deer density is extremely low. And I found other areas that were easier to get to and had much better deer density. I mean, completely blew away the public land that I saw in Texas. Even still, at the end of the season where I'm really struggling, it was like those areas have great deer populations. I just haven't figured out how to hunt them, and that's the thing that I need to work on the most, and one of the biggest takeaways that I have from this season. My goal with the e-scouting though was, all right, I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm not going to be able to build a lot of evidence for these areas. I'm going to go once or twice, 3 times if I'm lucky. I don't think I hit 3 times on any single that's not true. I hit 3 times in one spot. And I left cameras in at least one spot on all of these areas trying to get myself set up. I have not checked 3 out of these cameras the entire season, and I am essentially leaving them out there just to be like, all right, we're going to see what survived, what's here, if anything at all, how many other hunters are there, or, if the cameras themselves are even still there. There's the chance that they're not, based on my experiences in New Jersey. But the last spot that I scouted is the one that I ended up spending 90% of my time hunting. I did experience a couple of other spots, but between the deer I was seeing and the just overall terrain, I liked it the most. And I spent a lot of time there, even though there actually ended up being a good amount of hunting pressure. Hunting season kicked off the end of September. There is a like private land only velvet season that I have no private land access, so I can't hunt that. But I was out opening day. I had the biggest buck of my life at 60 yards and oh, just missed. I don't, you know, I don't even know if I had buck fever or if I misranged or what, but I just complete clean miss, by far biggest buck of my life. The type of buck where I'm like, I'm not going to share pictures or waypoints because he's still alive and the season's over in 2 weeks. I'm just going to pray that he makes it the 2 weeks and then I can try and get after him again in archery season next year. Archery season was my best season though. I was on bucks almost every single time I hunted. I was on deer every single sit. They were just always too far or the shot angle wasn't quite right and I wasn't willing to take the shot. But I put a lot of effort in. And I just was always in the wrong spot. And I think I had 3 total encounters with that buck, and I had a couple more encounters with some other real big ones. But coming into muzzleloader season is when things really started to change. Now, I did take a break in October. So throughout the year, one of the big things I wanted to maintain this year was staying in good shape. So the entire year, I've been going to the gym, I've been running multiple days a week. And part of that is just general life and health. But I also wanted to do my first Spartan race this year. So actually, in October, a few of my coworkers flew in from Texas and stayed with my wife and I for a long weekend. And the 3 of us did my very first Spartan race. It was like the one guy was like his third, and the other guy was like his 12th. But we did the Nashville Spartan race. It was the Super, which is a 10K, but it's actually more than 10K, which I didn't understand how that worked. But we did the whole Spartan race. Plus we did the extra mile, which is an extra running portion after you complete it. And I got every single obstacle except one. And it wasn't even a physical obstacle. I mean, I guess it is, but it was the spear throw. So like all of the difficult challenges I did, but the spear throw, couldn't do that one. I missed. I'm ecstatic that I did it. That's another thing. It was kind of like jujitsu when I started doing it a year and a half ago, or I guess 2.5 years ago at this point. I just wanted to do and just never did it. And the Spartan race was like that. I've wanted to do a go ruck and things like that for a long time. And I committed to doing the Nashville Spartan race even by myself if no one else came. I'm really happy that my 2 coworkers did, but I was going to do it by myself. I'm happy I didn't have to. And I'm just really happy that I did it. I think doing physical challenges and stuff like that are really great for you to stay in shape and be what you need to be when you're going out west. But when that was done, it was kind of going straight into the muzzleloader season. I was starting to prep. I don't remember exactly when the muzzleloader season started, but I know I hunted a week before. The last hunt I had with archery was the week before muzzleloader season opened. That was my last encounter with that big buck. And there was actually 2 really big bucks. They came out the last 5 minutes of light in a completely different spot than I had seen them previously. And I was hoping that they were going to come out in that spot opening day of muzzleloader. So opening day, I ended up hunting from the ground. My wife came out with me. She brought her bow. A doe actually came out and we tried to get her on the doe. Didn't work. We couldn't get close enough for her to take a shot. I probably could have taken it with my muzzleloader, but at that point in time, I was thinking, oh, I have plenty of season left. It's okay. Let's get my wife on a deer. No regrets on that. I don't actually regret it, but that was the thought in my head, thinking that I was going to get a deer down, which no. But then that buck did come out again, and it was literally at the end of legal light. I could see him. I could see his antlers. He was 110 yards away. I could not see my front sight post enough. And this is, I guess, the downside of using iron sights. I could not see my sights well enough to take that shot. So I had to let them go, and I have not seen them again except on camera. And I'm going to be honest, the rest of my deer hunting season has been this. It has been an absolute grind. I have been putting in sits. I have not seen deer. I have seen within range 5 deer the entire muzzleloader season after opening day. I have not seen a single buck. They have all been does. And I've never been able to get a shot. There was one that came really close during the rut. It was a doe. She was probably like 40 yards. I could have shot her, but she came out of some real thick bedding, and I was hoping that there was going to be a buck behind her. So I looked at her, looked behind her, and then by the time I got back, she was in some thick stuff. Her vitals were blocked. I couldn't take a shot. I looked back again. There was nothing. There was a tiny little opening where I was hoping I'd be able to get her. And she caught my scent trail because that was the direction the wind was going, and she was out. That was the last actual opportunity I had at a deer this hunting season, unfortunately. It's not all bad, though, because during the rut, my best friend Peter got his first buck ever. Peter is the guy, if you haven't listened to any of the podcasts I've had him on for, he is the guy who got me into hunting. He is the one who is responsible for me going out and hunting, and the reason that I am going down this rabbit hole that I have gone down, the reason I have this podcast. This is his first buck. It was an archery buck that he got it on public land in Pennsylvania. And I am just so stoked for him. I want to have him on to do a podcast, but between the holidays and travel, it's been really tough. We're going to Texas together here in a week and a half. So if we have downtime, maybe we'll try and record a podcast together and talk about it. We'll see. I'm not going to make any promises just because we're going to just try and enjoy the hunt and being there. His dad's going to come again. Our mutual friend is hosting us. My wife's going to be there. It's going to be a really great time. And then when I'm done with that, I'll be going to hunt with Carrie. So I'm very excited about all of it. It's going to be a good time. But I'm so excited for Peter. You know, up until this point, he'd only gotten does. He'd never gotten a buck before. So I'm just so happy for him. That was between Andrew getting his buck in January and Peter getting his buck in the rut. You know, honestly, that kind of does it for me as far as the year goes. I'm so grateful that both of them were able to find success and do that. And I don't admittedly have a whole lot of hunting success myself. I know it may seem that way when, you know, I do this podcast and you can see the mounts that I have in the background and you see that I have the elk and stuff. But grinding it out, doing it solo on public land, there's just something that hits different about it. But we should probably round up this year and this hunting season. I met a guy who I've been hunting with. Actually, we're chasing ducks. We've been going after ducks. He moved here from Colorado. He's got family in the area. And he and his wife, he's lived all over, actually. He's been in Montana, California. And we met over Facebook, of all places. I connected with him over a Facebook post in a hunting group for the area that we're in. And I basically just said, hey, is there anybody out there that's willing to take a guy who wants to hunt ducks and show him the ropes? And he offered to help me. So, you know, I've been with him and it's been a lot of fun. We went on our first duck hunt last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and we ran into a couple of guys. They were awesome. We ended up all hunting together, which you never know how it's going to be on public land. We have a group text now, which is funny how that works. We did not see any ducks, unfortunately. The other two guys, Anthony and Blake, they hunted the day before. They got 6 or 7 ducks total. Middle Tennessee is not exactly known for huge duck hunting, so it's not exactly Arkansas. But they got some a few days or the day before, and I'm actually going to be going duck hunting again tomorrow. So it'll be New Year's Eve. If you're listening to this the day it came out, maybe, hopefully, I'll have some ducks. That would be ideal, but you never know. Going to be doing a kayak float and hoping to jump shoot some on some rivers here in the WMAs. So that's exciting. Hopefully we'll be able to make that happen. Hey, everyone. I look different. This is actually the next day. So it is, in fact, New Year's Eve. I had to stop recording because I was actually going to meet with Alex Gruen from East to West Hunts to do a podcast to be on his podcast. So today is a new day, and I obviously look different. I couldn't find the hoodie that I was wearing yesterday, so it is what it is. I know I look different. Sorry about that. It is New Year's Eve. I did, in fact, get out this morning on my kayak, floated down the river, and had an opportunity at two mallards. I missed them. They flew overhead. I did not jump shoot them the way I thought I was going to. The conditions were pretty rough this morning. Today is the coolest day we've had in a week, so I thought it would be good for movement, but the wind was brutal. I was fighting it going out and back. Essentially, I kayaked down the river until really a point that I was like, all right, this is the spot where I'm going to go, and then I'm going to turn around and come back. Did that, went out and back, validated some areas where I want to access and scout for deer that are not impossible to reach from the road, but you would have to hike in a couple of miles to access them. So hopefully by taking the canoe, and I'll be able to find some spots where there's less hunting pressure. So I'm definitely going to want to check those spots out. But I did not actually get any ducks. I did have my first opportunity at ducks. Like I said, two mallards flew overhead. There were a few cranes in areas where I was hoping there were going to be ducks. So I don't know if it was just the conditions weren't great or what, but it was a good experience. I'm happy I went out there. Happy I did that. Ending the year on a hunt, trying something new. It was fun. I had a great time with Alex on his podcast. I'll drop a link to that here as well, just because I'm mentioning it. It just went live today also, so I shared it on my social media. Definitely check Alex out and check out the podcast and hear what I have to say. I got ahead of myself before finishing yesterday, and essentially duck hunting is something that I've wanted to do. I've been interested in. No one I've known has done it, and to be honest, I needed a break from deer hunting. I had been going too hard, putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on myself. And the other thing that I wanted to do that I was researching was pheasant hunting. My wife and I went on a pheasant and quail hunt at a hunting preserve in Middle Tennessee. We went about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I have gone pheasant hunting before in New Jersey when I lived there. We did not have dogs. It was me and a buddy, Scott. Neither of us had done it before, so we were both we shot some clays together, both wanted to try it, went to a few WMAs in New Jersey, and basically walked the fields trying to flush birds. Scott actually did get a pheasant on one of those 2 trips, but I never flushed any birds or anything like that. This time, I wanted to go guided. I wanted to find someone and get the full experience. I wanted to just have a good time, low stress, just watch the dogs do their thing, walk, hopefully shoot some birds, probably miss a bunch. And that's essentially what happened. Essentially, we paid to hunt and take up to, I think it was 4 pheasants and 10 quail. We went to their lodge, got to sit down and meet the people, met our guide, had an awesome time with them. His 2 dogs, I think their names were Mike and Belle, I'm pretty sure. And they were English setters. I had never actually seen an English setter in person before, so I had no idea what they looked like. But it was so much fun. I loved watching the dogs work. It was crazy to see their behavior change when they got on a scent of a bird. And it was also interesting just to see like how many times you might have to walk through an area to really comb it. The dogs really have to get every tiny, like not inch, but every really square foot of these fields where the birds are hiding, because you can get real close before they flush. And these are pointing dogs. So they would point, they would get on, and you would just see their behavior change like that. And it was a ton of fun. We each took birds. We took a total of 3 pheasants, I think 1 rooster, 2 hens, and 4 or 5 quail. We missed a ton of shots. I mean, we practiced by shooting some clays, but we definitely missed a few shots each. It was also windy conditions, which didn't help our favor. But man, quail are fast. The pheasants were a little easier to hit. I think out of 5 total that were pointed and flushed, we got 3. And then I don't know how many quail, but we missed so many of them. I mean, it was insane. But my wife and I both had an awesome time doing that. I definitely want to do that every year if we can. It was so much fun, a great break from deer hunting, and just it's nice being able to walk and talk and just enjoy it, no stress for a few hours, and hopefully get some birds down. For 2024, this is it. It is officially the last day of the year. All of my hunts are done. My hopes of getting a deer in Tennessee, they are over. I have no regrets at all. I'm looking forward to heading out to Texas next week. Going to be doing 2 different hunts out there, and I'm just looking forward to it. Yeah, I've just been really looking forward to it. Peter and his dad are coming. My wife's going to be out there. It's going to be an awesome time, and yeah, it's just I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. I've done a lot of talking about how the year is gone, and I kind of wanted to end on some of my reflections, some of the things that I've thought about as these hunting seasons have gone on, the struggles that I've faced. And I wanted to share those experiences and those lessons to kind of close out the podcast. I like to do things in fives generally. So I've got 5 reflections, I guess 5 tips as they were. And the first one is don't skip summer scouting. I really limited myself this year by not giving myself enough time to prep before the season started. I had to deal with essentially rushing, throwing darts on a map in Onyx, seeing what I could find, and then doing 1, 2 trips out there if I was lucky. And they were always rush trips. It wasn't like I was spending hours in a place. I would hike in on Onyx. I would look for a few specific terrain features or field edges, what I thought would be funnels. I would try and check those spots out, see if there's signs, see if I bumped any animals. I was really hoping to bump animals so I could see what was there and just get an idea for the areas. And that's something that I definitely want to change going into 2025 is spend more time scouting. I'm probably going to go and pull all of my cameras, see what's in the areas, and then change out batteries, put new cards in, and then pick new spots or go back to the same spot depending on what I saw and just leave the cameras out there and see what I see what animals made it through the season, see what I find in the summer, and just try and get a better understanding of everything that's going on. But spending more time scouting before the season is something I desperately need to do. The second reflection or tip is being more aggressive. I had 3 encounters during archery season with the biggest buck of my life, and I always played it safe. I wanted to stay in an area where I thought he was going to be, that he might get close enough, and he was always either at the edge of my range or just beyond it. And I think if I was more aggressive, I would have set myself up for actually filling a tag potentially. The muzzleloader season, the additional pressure completely changed everything. I mean, I'm sure that the deer were still patternable, but I couldn't figure it out. I don't know where that sanctuary is yet. I have some ideas, but I never gave myself enough time to really figure it out, put the time in, and find those locations where the deer are going to be. I think that a key thing for me next year is going to be trying to fill one of my tags during the archery season, and then muzzleloader season will just be a little less stress and try and figure things out. I'm going to not be picky. Like I'm going to go after a doe if I can get my chance at a doe. I just need to find success again on public land and make it happen. The third tip is being more mobile. I was very mobile in my area, but I probably should have explored more portions of the WMA that I was focusing on. It's a very big WMA, or possibly trying different WMAs altogether, or just different areas of public that you can hunt. Not everything's a WMA. I essentially resigned myself to this one location that had various bean fields with some mixed timber. And I did that because I had trail cameras there. I was seeing good bucks on the trail cameras. I saw deer very consistently in the archery season, and I just didn't want to deviate from that and try and learn a new place mid-season. I think that's something that I would probably need to change and probably should have changed. And towards the end, I ended up trying a couple other spots and crossed some off the map based on that. But I should have been more mobile throughout the entirety of the season, not just at the very, very end. Number 4 is don't put pressure on yourself. And this is the thing that kind of killed me at the end. I started doing this for the love of being outside, the love of the animals, figuring it out, playing the chess match, and filling the freezer with the best meat that you can get and a variety of it. And that's partly why I like chasing other animals. I don't want to just do deer, you know, waterfowl, upland birds, fish, turkeys, and have a variety of wild game in my freezer. It's supposed to be fun, and I want it to be. In the beginning of the season, I was having a good time. I was exploring. I felt like I was learning. But then towards the end, I started putting all this pressure on myself that I really didn't need to be. And it instead of being fun, I was just frustrated and getting annoyed at myself for not finding a way of making it happen. And this is as much a reminder for me as it is just advice to everyone else. Remember why you started doing this, why you do it in the first place, and enjoy it. Whatever the reason is, whether you like the challenge or if you're going after something specific, just focus on the joy of being out there and whatever it is that you're trying to get, and remind yourself that we are all lucky to be able to do this. Like the fact that we can go out and hunt public land and have a tag and a license, it's something to be very grateful for. And I know I definitely took that for granted this season. And number 5 is one that I've already talked about a couple of times, but hunting multiple species, I think, is a fantastic way to help reduce that burden of stress. I like to chase elk and mule deer and whitetails and pronghorn, and I hopefully will be able to go after turkeys and squirrels and rabbits and everything else. By putting variety in, not only does it always give you something else to do, learn, get better at, and tweak, but it helps break up that stress. Like for me, at the end of the year, I desperately needed to stop deer hunting and take a break. And having the ability to go after pheasants and quail and duck really made a huge difference for my morale and being outside. Like I still got outside, I got to do something different, much less stress, and just enjoying it. And I think if you're able to go out there and find something else to chase that gives you a bit of variety, it will not only help you be a more well-rounded hunter, but also help with that stress and pressure that I think we all inevitably put on ourselves at some point. And although I said there were going to be 5, I do have a bonus one at the end. This one's kind of specific for me, and I don't know how many people will benefit from it, but I need to use my canoe. That is something that I am learning is a great way to get away from people here. If you have not only the ability to navigate the water, but the willingness to go in and navigate the water and try and find places, you'll significantly reduce the amount of pressure that you're dealing with. At least as far as I can tell, you will. And that is another big thing that I'm going to be implementing next year. I've already got spots that I want to check out from the duck hunt this morning, and I'm excited to see what shows up on a camera there if I get out there. Overall, it has been a wild ride of a year with so many changes and things that I couldn't possibly predict, both personally and professionally. All of it has impacted basically every aspect of my life and stress, my hunting season, what I have been and have not been able to do or accomplish this year. And we've made the most of it, even though I haven't gotten a deer yet. And my hopes of getting one in Tennessee this year and this season are over. It's not done. I've still got meat in the freezer from last year. I'm going on these 2 hunts and hopefully I'll be filling some tags. And I'm just happy that I'm able to get out and do this. Now, for my next podcast that'll be coming out soon, I'll be talking all about 2025, what my hopes are for drawing tags, what my plans are here in Tennessee. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one when it's coming out. And as always, time is our most valuable asset. And I do not take it for granted that you chose to spend this time with me. I hope you had a great holiday season. Whatever you celebrate, I hope you have a wonderful new year and that good things come to you in 2025. I will see you all next time.